What's up, guys? It's three-time NFL Pro Bowler, all-decade return specialist, Josh Cribbs. I want to welcome you to the MSC Sports Connection podcast, where Alex hosts all things MAC, all things football, all things sports, right here, MSC Sports Connection, baby. The Mid-American Conference best, bringing it only the greats, MAC, to everyone.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the MSC Sports Connection podcast. I'm your host, Alex. Joining me, as always, and really for the final time, is Graham. Graham, welcome back.
Yeah, wow. What an end of a journey here. Of course, mine not quite as long as yours. That's but our final episode of the MSC Sports Connection podcast. And not a bad time of the year to do it, as we're coming into New Year here.
Yeah, this is a good time to wind down. We'll just kind of go to it from the top of the episode. The biggest question we've gotten is why. Why are you guys ending? You guys are, our go-to for MAC coverage. We need more voices like you in sports. And I certainly agree that more voices covering leagues like the MAC, the American, the Sun Belt need to be out there, need to be prominent. But the big reason why is this was always going to be a means to an end. For those who are not friends with me on Facebook or Instagram, I recently accepted a position as the Assistant Director of Sports Information and Athletic Marketing at Augustana College. For those who have followed along with the show, you know that I have been doing an internship for the last year and a half at Heidelberg University in Northwest Ohio. So very much still in the middle of MAC country, enough so that I've been able to attend games and do some coverage here and there. But Augustana, Illinois is closer to Iowa. In fact, right across the river from Iowa. So it takes me a little bit further out of MAC country. And my responsibilities as the Assistant Sports Information Director will be more than doubled compared to what they've been here at Heidelberg. So after lots of talks, Graham and I decided this is going to be the end. It's we knew that this thing had an expiration date. It's just a matter of when that expiration date was going to be, and it turns out it is the end of 2025.
Well, and we were saying it's a convenient end. We can say the show ran through 2025, and that's a nice round number for us.
Yeah.
It's certainly a bittersweet episode to talk about this one being the last one, and where we've started and where we've made it to. But Alex, most of the show was built by you. From kind of the ground up to where it's at now. And while the show I think is impressive, especially, once you added me, I think that was an excellent choice. I think really it's the relationships you built within this MAC community is what makes the show so special. And I think that's what's so great about this is that while the podcast is ending, those relationships continue on. And certainly the connections you've made in the conference and with the coaches and with various athletes, administrators, all those relationships continue. And so it's one of those things. I think losing the podcast is tough for the MAC community, although I do encourage our listeners. I mean, what fun has this been for us for the past, for me for the past year or so, and for you for longer than that. But what fun it has been to really connect with the Mid-American Conference and the community surrounding that. So I encourage our listeners. I mean, if this is a show that you're going to miss, make it. I mean, Alex, you can talk about, when you first started the show. I'll just ask the question. When you first started the show, did you know anything about podcasting?
Graham, I still don't know anything about podcasting. I no, when and kind of going back to 2019 when the show kicked off, it was, I'm sure some of you remember the old co-host AJ. We sat down and we talked about, hey, let's do a college football podcast. And we were going to try to cover everything from the Big Ten all the way down to like Division III. And we were going to talk all the way through that. And we realized that was an impossible scale to do with any sort of accurate consistency to be a voice in this thing. And since then it's the name's changed, it's been molded, reshaped, and really carved down and honed into not just football for the Mid-American Conference, but really trying to touch on every sport in this great league. And I think, Graham, you're right. It's not that I knew anything about podcasting, although I did quite a bit of research. Thankfully, COVID honestly almost ended up being the best thing that could have happened, because a lot of great platforms such as StreamYard and these other remote recording platforms came to life and provided opportunities to do remote interviews that were more efficient, more consistent. And so, yeah, I didn't know anything about podcasting. I didn't even know, really, I didn't even know what I was getting myself into. I thought it was going to be a couple of guys just kind of shooting the breeze and spouting their opinions about college football. And that's kind of stayed relatively true. Graham and I shoot our opinions off about quite a few things within the MAC universe. But and I think that's kind of been the thing that's been so beautiful and special about it. It's just a couple guys talking about a league they love, and making some connections with coaches along the way. I was looking back, Graham, when I was bringing you out to events with me, kind of as an affiliate of the show. Remember when we went to Buffalo and we hung out with Becky Burke, and now she's at Arizona. The old women's lacrosse coach at Central Michigan and Eastern Michigan is now at Florida State. And fun fact for those who don't know, her first coaching gig was at Augustana College over in Illinois, where I'm going to be. So that just really shows you how small this community is. Needless to say, Sarah Tisdale was very, very excited when I told her I got the job. But then, there's been some really incredible, administrators. Jeremy Guy has been a big supporter of the show, has been very, very helpful and very supportive with access. Jeremy let the podcast come to the MAC football championship in 2020 when nobody was there. So I look back on that, and a lot of times it'll even be conversations of, hey, are you coming out to this event? Let me know. But then it goes down to, the athletic directors I've had a chance to interact with, a chance to kind of talk with. Brian Blair at Toledo being one of them. Derek Vandermeer from Bowling Green, another newer face on the scene. Dan Bartholomew up at Western Michigan. I look at all these great administrators that have given us access, these SIDs in this conference. One of my goals was trying to get credentialed for sporting events at every single MAC stadium. And it happened. Obviously UMass did not happen, but not really a fair one considering there was a year overlap here. But, every stadium gave us access. Several Big Ten stadiums gave us access. A couple SEC stadiums gave us access. Even a Big 12 stadium, which, shout out Cincinnati, I guess. But it's, I look back through all of this and I'm blown away, because one thing, Graham, and I know I've talked to you about this before, and maybe you feel this a little bit. Every time we get to do an event, or every time that we sit down to talk about an event we did, I'm always so ecstatic that we got to do that. And I feel like I almost don't belong. It's like, I'm sitting next to guys from the Associated Press or the Toledo Blade, or these bigger outlets. And I'm like, who am I? And that I get this opportunity to do this. And I think that's special.
Well, and I think that's the encouragement that I want to give to our fans, to anybody who feels like, missing this podcast is going to leave a hole somehow in MAC athletics coverage. it doesn't take much. I mean, and it's just telling yourself that you can do this. I mean, Alex, you and AJ were just a couple of guys, and just and really with no real podcasting knowledge, with no real like inside connections to the MAC other than having been alumni.
Yeah.
The and it just started. I mean, it was emails, it was texts, it was slowly building relationships as time went on, and it was a kind of a feat of believing in yourself. It's this idea that like, what's the worst they can say is no, and building on those small victories. We've had a couple of missteps here and there with the podcast. You mentioned starting out way too big. This idea that you're going to cover all of the sports from the very top to the very bottom, and all of college sports, and that's hard to do when you got two guys on it. Even trying to cover all the sports in the MAC is a tough challenge. Yeah. So I think that's tough. I mean, we've done things like getting access to games and deciding we're going to do an online broadcast of games. That's I mean, just kind of silly stuff that you don't really think you're going to have the opportunity to do. And trying it is something. And you're right. I think the miraculous thing has been the openness with which people have invited the show in, and invited you in specifically, Alex. I think these athletic directors and these SIDs and the coaches and the administrators you mentioned, everybody in the MAC has this passion for the sport, and I think that's where the show finally found its niche. Was this idea that there are unheard voices within the conference, and how do we highlight those, and how do we highlight the things that are going on? Of course, we've got to cover football, and of course, we've got to cover basketball. But there's a lot of things within the conference that still aren't getting as much coverage as they deserve. And doing a little bit of highlight on those things. I think it's been hard to strike that balance between the things that already have an audience that we need to cover in order to bring people in to have listeners, and then also cover the things that deserve a bigger audience, and how to kind of balance that sort of coverage on the show. I don't know that we ever really got it right, but I think the pursuit of it was a worthy cause. And so all this to say, I mean, I think I haven't been on the show that long. I've been helping out with the show for a while. But I think there's mistakes to be made and further mistakes to be made by somebody who wants to pick up this mantle. And so I know, Alex, I speak for both of us when I say that anybody who wanted to do a show like this, we would be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. As far as how this thing works, because it has been a ton of fun.
Mostly to answer questions on what not to do. That's those are the questions that we're very ready to answer. No, you're right, Graham. It's been, that the access has been kind of what overwhelms me a little bit. It's the biggest thing that I think you and I have done a really good job of, especially over the last year and a half or so. Since you've kind of taken on full time with the show, is there's no expectations for anything. I think in the beginning of the show, it was, what can you do for me? And now it's, how can I showcase your sports better? How can I showcase your facilities better? How can I talk about your team better? What can we as a show give to you as an institution that makes you look good, that helps your brand? It's a lot about that, almost that servant attitude when doing something like this. There are a bunch of incredible shows out there, and I think sometimes some of those shows miss the mark. It's what can this brand do for me? But I think for us, it had to be, what can we do to elevate the MAC, elevate some of these schools and make them make their stories heard, as you were just talking about. And
I think it's important to remember that whatever your focus is as far as the show goes, but I think when you have that kind of service idea within your head, that can fuel a lot of the direction that the show takes. But of course, we're servants of two masters here. We both want to elevate the conference, and we want these programs to look good, and we want the MAC to have a higher profile within the larger sports world. But at the same time, we're certainly beholden to our audience and to our listeners, and to the folks that follow us on social media. And so there is both a desire to elevate the conference, and also kind of a need to be honest and to criticize the conference when it's important, or to criticize a program when that's the case. And again, I mean, that's the show has been all about finding that balance. I don't know that we've struck it perfectly, but but looking for that balance, I think is the endless pursuit of this podcast, and one that's been fun to explore. I mean, I think a lot of the things you think about a podcast, you think about, you want a guy who's knowledgeable, a guy with headphones and a microphone, and I think people don't recognize the everything that goes on behind it, and how would you know without without doing it? And so some of that is relationship building, and some of that is editing, sound editing is part of it, and some of that is you thinking about the direction of the show and kind of the logistics there, and what we're going to cover and how we're going to cover it, and really all of those things in the short time that I've been a larger part of the show have really been a joyful pursuit, and so I think that's kind of what my takeaway from the show is the way in which you pursue any goal is as important as the goal itself, and the podcast has really allowed been an excellent outlet for that. It's both learning about the MAC, right? Of course, that's we know a lot about MAC sports, but we also know a lot more than we did last week, even because it's just this constant reading and looking things up, and talking to coaches and everybody else. So I think that knowledge and the pursuit of knowledge is part of it, but finding a way to present things to an audience has been a real joy.
One of the things, I love that takeaway, Graham. I really do. I think that's definitely one of the big takeaways I have. For me, one of my biggest takeaways is awareness. When I first started this thing, it was not so much about making people aware of, whatever's going on in the world of college athletics. It was more about trying to build the brand and get my name out there. But as it's kind of shifted and evolved over time, I get people randomly message me, people who I know are not followers of the MAC, say, "Hey, did you see Toledo beat Mississippi State last week?" Or, "Did you watch that Notre Dame NIU game?" I'll get stuff like that. Now, sure, those are big outlying examples, but I'll even get random messages about Miami field hockey making it to the next round of the NCAA tournament, winning their 12th, 13th straight conference tournament. Like, I'll get messages about that. And I think that's what's cool. I've got large Ohio State and Michigan fans who are diehard Buckeyes and Wolverines say, I find myself in November actively turning on Tuesday and Wednesday night games because of you and your podcast, because you have just lived the brand of Maction so vibrantly through everything you do. And I think for me, that has been the goal, is to just bring more eyes to the conference. It's not always pretty. I'll be the first to admit it. I've watched some really ugly MAC football games in my time. Yeah, Graham knows exactly what I'm talking about. But if I can bring a little bit more awareness to this league that I'm very, very much proud to be part of, then I think that's the goal that I've accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so many of these events are great within the conference. I mean, I always love the baseball at the end of the year. I love to go to that tournament, but we were arguing a little bit just a few weeks ago when we were at the football championship about whether it's the football or the basketball championships that are the premier event of the MAC. And I think for my money, it's got to be basketball. I think that's where we landed. But certainly, the football championship in Detroit, the basketball in Cleveland, and then the baseball that's been in Avon the past couple of years. It's all of those events have been wonderful to attend, and I think the conference does a great job there. But when you're at these events, I think especially the basketball, I think the basketball exudes it a little bit more than the others. You see MAC fans who are fans of the conference. I mean, of course, everybody has a favorite team. Everybody has the school that they went to, but especially in Cleveland, you have folks who show up just because they like MAC basketball, and not because they're there to root for a specific team, but because they like MAC basketball in general. And I think there is a lot to this conference that folks don't understand. The midweek action is a great foothold. It's a great way to get in there and then kind of experience what the MAC is like from that perspective. It gives you an idea of the beauty and the ugliness, as you mentioned. But I encourage all of our listeners to go to these events and meet with other MAC fans and try to experience the conference as a whole, because that's what we've gotten to do. Going from being pretty much straight Toledo fans, although I did grow up a fan of the Zips, so I still have a little bit of that in there. But from being pretty much straight Toledo fans to really being fans of the conference as a whole, it's this experiencing other fans and really experiencing the MAC as a whole at these big tournaments are the easiest way to do that. And really seeing the way that the community comes together for these sporting events. It's something to see, and it's great. There's not a single person when we go to that MAC golf outing. How many people do we talk to that have memories from their times in the conference when they went to school 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 50 years ago? Yeah. Everybody has stories. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the story of this podcast, Alex, is just the story of the MAC. It's the story of things that are beautiful, even though you don't expect them to be, and things that are ugly, despite all chances to try and be beautiful. That's I don't want to put you on the spot here, but
Go for it.
I have some questions for you that I'm curious about to get answers for. So I would say, what is for you? What's your biggest breakthrough in terms of an interview that you got that you didn't think you were going to get?
Oh boy, I'm gonna go back to the kind of the beginning days of the podcast. Probably Trisha Cullip, who's now the head coach at Miami down in Florida, but when she was coaching at Toledo. We got her on during COVID. That was not something I was expecting, because at that point we hadn't really reached out to any of the big sports. We had reached out to cross country, golf, track and field, right? Like, so it was just a lot of this other sports that weren't as prolific within the Mid-American Conference or on the national stage. And Trisha Cullip, well respected across the Mid-American Conference, across college basketball as a whole, reaching out to her, and almost 20 minutes later, when are you guys thinking about doing this? So I think for me, that was kind of a big, like, we're really doing this. This is a thing that's kind of happening. And I recognize it's a little bit of Toledo bias. You'll probably hear a little bit of that sprinkled throughout the rest of this episode. Full disclosure, we both graduated from Toledo, in case you guys didn't know that yet. But I would have to say the Trisha Cullip interview back during COVID, that was a lot of fun. and she was just a great guest to have.
What's your advice to somebody who's going to be interviewing a coach for the first time? What's the one piece of advice you think is most important?
Something that I still kind of have to remind myself, they're just people. They're just people who happen to have a better job title than you do. That's no, but really, I mean, they're people who, want to talk about their job, the players they coach, the place they work, and they want to tell their story. I think kind of looking at that, for an example, I had Eddie George on at Mac Media Day this year. And I think if I had interviewed Eddie George back in 2019, I would have been too starstruck to do that interview. But as I got more comfortable with this, and as I kind of built this platform and this brand up a little bit, it was just it almost became second nature to say, "Hey, another head coach. Let's talk ball." And for me, that was kind of a cool little switch of a moment, because I know, again, 6 years ago when we started this thing, there's no way I would have been able to keep my composure. I barely kept my composure when we had Chris Wormley on. Chris Wormley, who played at football at U of M, and Ricky Stokes, the associate commissioner of championships at the Mid-American Conference. Barely contained my composure. But now it's like they're just people who have great stories, stories that often go untold because of where they're at. Now everybody knows the Eddie George story, right? We all know his Heisman heroics, his time in Tennessee. But nobody knows the story of Daniela Tomic, the former women's volleyball coach at Bowling Green. She's from Bosnia and Herzegovina. Like she came here to the U.S. to play volleyball, recruited out of high school, and she knew nobody. People don't know the story of Adrian Myers, who's now the track and field coach at Tulane. He was a runner all through college, but his story may not seem that interesting to that many people. Mike Fleck, the golf coach at Ball State, people don't know his story. They don't know that he's just the third head coach for men's golf in Ball State history, following his former coach, who led the program for 40 years. Like there are countless stories, and I'm just going back through and I'm thinking about all these people we've interviewed, and I'm just kind of like, wow. I mean, Graham, you and I interviewed the Toledo baseball coach last year. We found out he played baseball at Tennessee. Nowhere was that listed anywhere, but he spent some time at Tennessee. So it's just a lot of great stories that don't get told. And I think that's the big thing. Remember that they're people, and then tell their stories.
I think that's great advice. And yeah, I think that's true. That reminding yourself that the person you're talking to is just a person, just another person to have a conversation with. And certainly, those conversations have led you to build and strengthen those relationships that we talked about earlier, but also to learn some of the stories from the conference's history that we weren't necessarily there to witness. But in so doing, I think everybody has a Mac story, something that they witnessed that will always be their Mac memory. So whether it's during the time of the show or before, what's your Mac memory?
Gosh, again, Toledo bias coming out, and in fact, I believe you were with me for this one, so you might remember this one. Toledo was 7-1 coming into this game. Cincinnati was undefeated. Cincinnati came to the Glass Bowl. Toledo won that game without scoring an offensive touchdown. Jeremiah Detmer, remember that name, the kicker, had a bunch of field goals. Bernard Reedy had a kick return for a touchdown. There was a defensive touchdown. Toledo won that game. Munchie Legault was the quarterback for Cincinnati. I don't know why I remember that, but probably because it's just such a wild name. But I would say probably Cincinnati, who was in the top 20 of the AP, Big East contender, came into Toledo, lost in the Glass Bowl, and Toledo didn't score a single offensive touchdown. I think for me, that's probably one of my biggest memories.
Yeah, an incredible memory. And the fans rushing the field after the game.
Oh, that was a blast.
And getting pictures with players. Just a really fun time.
David Llewellyn in that game as well.
God, I actually heard a pitch yesterday from somebody who was pitching that the restarting the Big East, but with Notre Dame spearheading the effort. So Notre Dame restarts the Big East, themselves.
Sure.
I obviously I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it could. I think it could work. Just as a real middle finger to the ACC. That's what we're talking about.
What's your memory, Graham?
Oh, I think I have the same memory. I think that's my favorite Mac memory. That's yeah. I mean, there are other Mac moments, but I think that's the big one for me. Had some fun times in college doing the halftime activities.
Sure.
They got to do it's like the put on the oversized gear at the basketball game and then make a layup. So I got to handle that one at a halftime at one point. But I think as far as sports memories go, it's that one. I have some negative memories. I have so many
heartbreakers.
Northern Illinois really kicked the crap out of Toledo for a few years there.
We'll never forgive you, Jordan Lynch. I was thinking kind of more other memories, and these all predate the show. Remember when I won those plane tickets to Florida?
Sure. Yeah. And then for some reason didn't use them.
I sold them, in fairness. But yeah, no, that's
unless you're a member of the University of Toledo promotions department, then Alex definitely used those tickets. And
I definitely used those. No, that's another good one. Yeah, Jordan Lynch, man. I don't think we appreciated it at the time because we hated NIU. But to get to watch a Heisman caliber campaign and to get to witness some of that live was pretty cool.
Yeah. He certainly didn't treat Toledo fans very well, but yeah, I'm sure those Huskies fans really liked that season from Jordan Lynch there. I mean, just some incredible MAC moments.
What's the biggest upset? What's the biggest heartbreak you've witnessed? Okay,
I mean, the biggest heartbreak. So not necessarily like a game loss, but that Gabbert leg injury I think was tough on everybody. So that was kind of heartbreaking. That game was so good up until that point, and then with that leg injury led to a long stop in the play, and really we watched it slowly dawn on Miami fans that this might be it. This might be the end of this Miami team in this Miami season, and then even more so the end of Brett Gabbert's career. And then turned out, nope, that wasn't the case. But it's
Avion Smith filled in pretty nicely.
Certainly was a sad moment, a heartbreaking moment.
I think one of the games that again we've had so many heartbreakers that we've witnessed just due to late field goals or not converting late, whatever. That Gabbert injury was nuts. You and I were doing a live call of that game, and that was when I think I realized we didn't map this out very well. In fairness, I was never great at mapping those things out anyway. You did a lot of the behind the scenes legwork on game note prep and things like that. So got to make sure you get your flowers for that. But I realized as we're sitting there, You know, we don't have any commercials. We don't have anything to kind of like, hey, we're gonna kick it to this until
We didn't
like
even
we're
have any
good.
music. There's
We
nothing we can
didn't.
play. Nothing we
Yeah.
can play. It just
And we
whoops.
just kept talking, and then okay, we're gonna step aside for a second, and we would just mute our mics. Like, what do we say? So that was what was probably just 15 minutes felt like an hour and a half, because it's
Yeah.
like I don't know what to say right now. You know, we didn't have cameras, so it wasn't like we could pan away to like the sidelines or something. Yeah, that was rough. I think for me, one of the biggest, I guess, heartbreaks, if you will. You and I were at that Buffalo game, and we watched Buffalo lose to Fordham late.
Oh yeah, that was tough.
That was Buffalo was up big early.
Well, and Buffalo was clearly the better team in that game, and I still to this day I can't really put a finger on what happened there. They just lost it. I mean, it's almost like the Space Jam as the little monsters steal the talent from the NBA players. Like suddenly these guys couldn't play anymore. But it was that was a heartbreaker.
That was one of the toughest losses I've witnessed in person. Now, you know, I've seen a bunch on TV, but like in person, like you just felt the energy leave the stadium as like Fordham kept chipping away, and you're like, oh no, I know exactly how this is going to end. Sure enough, Fordham closed it out with a victory. That was brutal.
That was a tough one. Well, Alex, I mean, I think we're kind of wrapping up here in terms of not just this episode, but the show in general. So, my final question to you is, what are your final thoughts that you want to leave our audience with?
First, I want to say thank you. 6 years ago, I got this insane idea to start this podcast. And it started out, the very first episode had 8 listeners, and I'm pretty sure I was 6 of them, because it was just trying to figure out, how do I improve this? And then we worked our way through it, and you know, now we have hundreds of listeners to listen to us talk about the Mac. And I guess for me, that's kind of the first thing I want to say is thank you to the fans. Thank you for the people who support this league, but also by supporting this league, in turn support us by listening to us talk about this league. You know, that's to go back and look 6 years ago to now. It's been an incredible journey of highs and lows within the conference, but also with meeting fans, from joining you at tailgates, from interacting with you online, debating who has the biggest Mac stadium, who has the best Mac stadium. Central has the biggest, Toledo has the best. And, you know, but talking about the history of this great league. But also to the people who may not necessarily be the fans, I want to thank you as well, because you challenged, you know, how we approach things. You challenged how we prepared. You know, you challenged me, and you know, publicly made sure that I knew that I put my foot in the mouth. Shout out to the NIU fans when I said y'all weren't leaving the Mid-American Conference. You know, I look back on all of that, and all of that has made me a better, I don't want to say sports writer, because that's not what this is. Sports coverage guy. I don't know what I want to say there.
Sports coverage guy, sure, yeah. That's,
yeah,
we know a lot
noted
about
profession. To the administrators who have just continued to grant us access, thank you. To the SIDs who I can go and talk to and have conversations with about the show, about life in general. I'm so appreciative that you said yes. To the coaches who we interviewed at first, that were some rough interviews. Thank you. Thank you for
and
your
sorry.
Yeah, and sorry, that's that I was getting there. But then to the coaches who we've interviewed since, and the coaches that have come on to do media day and whatnot since, thank you. You know, it's been incredible. Mike New, the former Ball State coach, I interviewed him every single year up until this season. Jason Candle, I've interviewed him every single year until this next season, because now he's at UConn. Gosh, the MAC is just losing a lot of guys. Scott Leffler, who was so great. Tom Arth, one of my very first MAC Media Day interviews, was former Akron coach Tom Arth. To Commissioner Steinbrecher, who sat down with me a couple different times. I know a lot of people aren't necessarily his biggest fans, but I think that he is a veteran of college athletics who has seen a lot, and he understands the landscape. And sure, maybe things don't change as quick as we want as fans. He's been through a lot. He's seen a lot. And I'd like to think that he takes a very measured approach to everything he does. Jeremy Guy, of course. I know I mentioned him at the top of the show. For giving me plenty of access to this conference, for giving me help in setting up some of these interviews. It's truly appreciated. And then, of course, to the countless podcast and Twitter personalities who not only interact but collaborate. College Football Home, who's done a great job with the Pick'em with us for the last several years. Herd Bros, who is a big Group of Five advocate. Group of Five guys, of course. I want to shout you guys out as well. We kind of started around the same time, and it's been awesome seeing what you guys have continued to push and grow. To the accounts who love to banter with us. Shout out to Barstool Kent State for your terrible takes. I appreciate them. And then shout out to Ball State Football Talk for publicly eating crow after I told you Ball State was going to get blown out by Western Michigan. I really appreciated that. But no, seriously, so many incredible accounts and people and fans and everybody who have been a part of this thing. We couldn't have done a tenth of what we've done without you tuning in and supporting and interacting. Nearly 5,000 people on Twitter have at some point interacted with us over the years, and I can't say thank you enough.
Well, I think that's it, Alex. I think that wraps it up for us. And I want to echo your words. Thank you to all of our listeners and to all the folks who have supported us through the years. It certainly has been humbling to become a member of such an enriching sort of community here, and really just to talk about collegiate sports. So it's been a ton of fun. And with that, I think that'll be it for me, Alex. Goodbye to everyone, and thank you so much.
Thank you guys for tuning in. It's been a great 6 years. I'll still be around to talk Maction for those who want to talk, but of course, that's going to do it for us here from the Mac Sports Connection podcast. I'm Alex. That's Graham. Thank you guys for a great 6 years.
Peace.